Good morning. Today's experiment is going to be determination of thermoelectric power of a thermocouple at a given temperature. So, what is a thermoelectric effect? Thermoelectric effect was first observed by a German physicist, Thomas Johann Seebach, in 1821, and he observed that a compass needle deflected when a closed loop was formed by two different metals joined at two places. So, when there was a junction formed by two metals at two different places. So it's a closed loop. And he saw, and when a temperature difference was applied between the two junctions, what Seebeck saw was that a magnetic needle or a compass deflected, thereby showing that there was current in the circuit. So he deduced that the current induced in the circuit was due to the temperature difference that was there between the two junctions. So the temperature difference between the two junctions generated the so-called EMF, and that was called the thermoelectric EMF. And because of that EMF, there was a current in the loop. So this effect is called the thermoelectric effect, and basically it encompasses three different effects. One is the Seebeck effect, which I right now described. The opposite of Seebeck effect is Peltier effect. That is, if a current flows through uh, uh, through a thermocouple. We'll describe what a thermocouple is. It's basically two metals joined together and forming two junctions. So if current flows through this uh, couple, then one end of that couple will automatically get heated up and the other end will be at a lower temperature. So there will be a temperature gradient or a thermal gradient that will be developed due to the flow of current. Seebeck effect is the opposite. Due to the thermal gradient, there is a current flowing in the circuit. And Peltier effect is due to current flowing in the circuit, there will be a thermal gradient developed when two different metals are joined together. Thomson effect is basically an extension of the Peltier-Seebeck model. So, in this experiment, we will concentrate, or our focus will be on Seebeck effect. So, this is a diagram drawn. You can see. First of all, understand what a thermocouple is. The name suggests thermocouple. It's a couple. That means it is made up of two metals, different metals, not similar metals. Similar metals cannot form a thermocouple. I'll explain in a moment why similar metals cannot form thermocouple. So you need to have two dissimilar metals. So you need to have two dissimilar metals. In this case, let us take metal A here and take the pen. So you have metal A here and this is your metal B. Now what you do is, it's a simple thing, you join these two metals. This will become, so this is a junction and this is a junction. So it becomes a thermocouple. It becomes basically a couple, and if you heat one end up, that is if you maintain a temperature difference between two junctions, this is junction 1 and this is junction 2. So you have joined the two metals, and if you maintain a temperature difference between these two junctions, this device that we are forming is called a thermocouple. And by maintaining a temperature difference between the two junctions, what is developed is a voltage. So you can see there is a, you will be seeing that there will be a voltage developed in this closed circuit. And this effect is called thermoelectric effect. As the name suggests, thermo means it is induced due to temperature differences. And electric means here that there is a voltage induced. Remember, it is only dependent on the temperature difference. If the two junctions are maintained at the same temperature, there will be no EMF generated. So there are two criteria for the EMF to be generated. The first criteria is the metals must be different. If you join two similar metals, no EMF would be generated. I'll explain in a moment why. And the second point is, if you are joining two different metals at the junctions, you have to maintain a temperature difference in order to induce a voltage. So the second criteria for inducing an EMF is to maintain a temperature difference. So even, let's say you heat this junction up and you also heat this junction up. So this junction becomes, let's say it is at 100 degrees Celsius. This junction is also, let's say, at 100 degrees Celsius. it won't induce a voltage. You have to maintain a temperature difference. So a delta T must be there between the junctions. So this is the second condition. And the junctions must be formed by two different metals. I'll make you understand why these criteria must hold for the EMF to be generated. So this is what is shown. Now thermocouple is again an electrical device. It consists of two dissimilar electrical conductors forming a closed loop with two electrical junctions. So as I mentioned, you have to join the two metals at the two junctions and keep one junction at a higher temperature than the other junction. But before moving on, let us understand the next few slides will be on the Seebeck effect, how this EMF is generated. So basically, I'll explain in this slide because I have lots of space. So please understand, even in a single conductor, you can generate an EMF. I repeat, even in a single conductor, you can generate an EMF. Let us say this is a single conductor. Let us say I name this conductor or a metal as X. And you know that in a conductor, you have lots and lots of free electrons. You have lots and lots of free electrons that carry thermal energy as well as electrical energy. So these are evenly distributed, let us say, inside the metal. See, I am not talking about the thermocouple right now. I am not talking about a thermocouple. Couple means there must be two metals, dissimilar metals. I am talking about a single metal, and let's say the metal is X. What I do is I heat one end. I heat one end of the metal and keep the other end at a lower temperature. What will happen to this end? What will happen to this end which I heat? Simple explanation I want. What will happen if I heat one end of this single metal? I repeat, I am not talking about a thermocouple. I am talking about a single metal. A single metal, let us say X. I heat one end of the metal. What will happen to this side? The first thing that is coming to your mind. What will happen to this side? What will happen? Let me give you a hint. This side will expand a bit. Isn't it? Thermal expansion. This side will expand as compared to the cooler end. So if this side expands, let us say the number density of electrons is N. Number density means the number per unit volume. This is the number density. It is number per unit volume. So I have increased, because I have heated this side, I have increased the volume. So what will happen to the number density of the electrons? The electrons will be there, but there will be less number of electrons per unit volume because the volume has increased. So here the density of the electrons will reduce. Am I right? As compared to this side, which is cooler. There will be more electrons per unit volume because this has not expanded. This region has expanded. That is, say for example, in a room there are 10 people. So the density is the number density is the number of people divided by the volume of the room. If I am heating this side, I am increasing the volume. So if the volume of the room increases, then the same number of people are there, but with an increased volume. That is, here the density of electrons would reduce on the hotter end. And the density of the electrons at the cold end is larger as compared to this. So if this is my junction, this is my point B, there is no junction. This is just the point A. The number density at A is Na. The number density at point B is Nb. Na will be less than Nb. Am I right? So here the density of electrons is more. The concentration of electrons. Here the concentration of electrons will be low. So you know, whenever there is a concentration gradient, that is the concentration is changing, the electrons will diffuse from this side to this side. That is from right to left. So there will be diffusion of electrons from the colder end to the hotter end. But there is another effect. Since you are heating the electrons here, the kinetic energy of the electrons will be towards the right. Here the electrons will have more kinetic energy. The electrons will be much more energetic at this end. These electrons will drift to the right. So there are two processes going on. One is the diffusion due to the concentration gradient that is being developed. It is opposite to the drift, and the drift is due to the heat that I have given over here. So since I am heating this, the drift of the electron towards the right, they will try to move towards the cooler end. And understand the drift will be so much that it will overcome the diffusion. So ultimately what will happen? Ultimately a situation will arise where, since the drift is more due to the heat, a situation will arise that on the cooler end there will be more electrons as compared to the hotter end. So this side will gain positive, will have a positive charge, and this side will have a negative charge. What have you developed? You have developed a potential difference. See, I am not talking about a thermocouple, I am talking about a single conductor. You have developed a potential difference just by heating one end and keeping the other end cool. So just by applying a temperature difference delta T, you have created a potential difference between the two junctions. And it is because the electrons at the hotter end are having high value of kinetic energy, so they will move towards the cooler end. Though there will be diffusion due to concentration gradient, but this drift will surpass the diffusion, and there will be, you can see there is an electric field created inside E. And you know that whenever there is an electric field, there is a potential gradient. So there is a potential gradient created. So even in a single conductor, if you keep one end hot and the other end cool, you will create a potential difference. But the whole point is, how do you measure the potential difference? In order to measure this potential difference, you need to connect it to a voltmeter. But if you want to connect, you want to have another metal at this connection, This is where you are making a thermocouple. Now please understand, if this, let us say this is my copper wire. I am heating one end of the copper wire. So first thing is clear, that why a temperature difference is needed to create a potential difference. It is only because there is a temperature difference, there is a potential difference created. Now why two similar metals cannot be used? Let us say this is metal X and I am heating one end. This I have heated, this I have heated, and this I have kept it at a lower temperature. This is junction, this is point A and this is point B. Now there is a potential difference developed. This is delta V. I have not connected it to anything else. It's just the potential difference that has developed. I'm still not able to measure it. Now what I do, if I want to measure it, I connect it with another metal. Let us say even this metal is X. So what you have, this metal is joined at this junction. So the potential at this junction for the two metals are same since they are joined. And this is at a cooler end, let's say at the room temperature. This is also at the cooler end at room temperature. So this potential difference and even this metal will have a potential difference, and these two will be same because the materials are same. Both are X. So if you connect a galvanometer or let's say a voltmeter to these two ends have the same potential because this is at the same potential because these two conductors are connected, and the potential difference due to the temperature difference at these two junctions for both the metals will be same because the metals are same. So if you connect a voltmeter, the voltmeter will show a 0 reading. But if this metal is Y, let us say you connect a different. So if this is, let us say, constant and wire and this is copper wire, then this potential drop across Y, the temperature, it's again heated. This is at the same potential. This wire and this wire is at the same potential. But this potential drop will depend on the material of this wire, because it depends on the number density. What is the drift? What is the conductivity of the material? What is the resistivity, or let's say the conductivity of the material? So this potential difference, whatever the potential over here is for Y, and whatever the potential is here for X, they will be different. And now if you connect a voltmeter, the voltmeter will show an EMF. So this is, now see, you are creating a thermocouple. These two are connected by the voltmeter, you can see. So this forms the cold junction, and this forms the, they are at the room temperature, let us say. And this forms the hot junction. So just in order to measure the potential difference, you need to connect a different wire. If you connect the same wire of the same material, you won't be able to measure the potential difference, because the potential difference at the cooler end are same. So in order to measure the potential difference, or in order to have a potential difference, you need to have two dissimilar metals that needs to be joined. So this is one end of the junction, and this is the other end of the junction. So there are two. So basically the EMF developed, or the voltage difference that I am talking about, will be basically proportional to the temperature difference. And you can logically understand it. If the temperature difference is high, if you maintain this, or if the difference of temperature between these two junctions is high, then there will be more drift of electrons. So this will become more negative, and this will become more positive. That is, the potential difference will also be high. So it is logical that the EMF developed is proportional to the temperature. And what is the proportionality constant? The proportionality constant is known as the Seebeck coefficient of that particular material. So it is S delta T. That is the Seebeck coefficient. This is what you have for the material. So this potential drop will depend on the Seebeck coefficient of X, and this potential drop will depend on the Seebeck coefficient of Y. So if you take this difference, then that Seebeck coefficient will depend on, basically it will be something around Sx minus Sy. So this is a couple property. This depends on both, because this potential difference will be the potential difference for, let us say, X conductor is Ex, it is Sx delta T, and Ey would be, this will be equal to, and Ey would be this potential drop. This potential drop for Y conductor would be, let us say, Sy delta T, because they are maintained at the same temperature difference. So what is the net potential difference between these two ends? It will be Ex minus, let us say, Ey. And that will be basically Sx minus Sy into delta T. So this is a property of the thermocouple, the couple that you are using, whatever material that you are using. And this is the potential difference. This is the potential difference that you will be measuring. Now, this is what I told you. The slides is again, so this is the explanation that I was talking about. Now the applications of Seebeck effect. Now please understand, basically thermocouples are used as temperature sensors in order to measure temperatures where you cannot use thermometers. We know that we use thermometers to measure temperature, but there are places, there are situations, especially in research, that where we cannot use thermometers. In those cases, we need to use thermocouple. Let's see how. So I told you that the EMF developed is proportional to the temperature. It's proportional to the temperature. Now I have a thermocouple, let us say. Let us say I have a thermocouple. This is metal X and this is metal Y, and these are the two junctions, A and B. So what I do is I heat one junction and I keep the other junction cool at a lower temperature, let us say. And I can vary this heat, let us say. So I change this temperature difference and I see what the EMF is produced. And you can see from the relation that if you increase the temperature difference, the EMF produced will also increase. Fine. So if you plot a graph So you can check for that thermocouple. You can check for that thermocouple that the EMF produced and delta T if you plot. So you know that if the temperature difference increases, the EMF produced also increases. And there is a time then when it becomes flat and then it reduces. So I'll show you the graph, but right now I want to make you understand the applications of it. That's why I'm drawing the graph. So this is called the neutral temperature, where it becomes flat. This is the linear region where we are more or less linear region that we will be interested in. So this is the graph that you would have. So you can easily take a thermocouple. Let us say you make a thermocouple of your own of two dissimilar metals and you vary the temperature difference. That is, you change delta T or increase delta T. That is, you keep on heating this end, keeping this end at the same temperature. So if you increase the temperature difference, the EMF produced will also increase. And let us say you plot the graph and you have a graph like this. Fine. Now what you want is you want the temperature of something. Let us say a furnace in industrial applications. Let us say. And the temperature of a furnace is thousands and thousands of degrees. So if you keep a thermometer inside, the thermometer will not work. The mercury will, it might evaporate or it will not work. The thermometer glass will break, it will melt and it will evaporate and all. So what can you do? Let's say you want the temperature inside this furnace. You will keep the thermocouple that you have made with one junction inside the furnace and the other junction outside at room temperature. So this is room temperature. And what you do is, what I'll do instead is this. I'll keep this end open. This is the room. This is the thermocouple. Ignore this one. Okay. So you keep one end inside and the other side at room temperature and you connect here the voltmeter that I was talking about. So this end they are connected. So this end is the room temperature junction and this is the hot junction. So you measure the voltage. And now when you have the voltage, that is the EMF that you have, you can check your graph. This is the calibration graph of your thermocouple, the calibration graph. You have plotted it beforehand. Now if you have the EMF, you can check from the graph. Let us say this is your EMF. You can check from the graph that an EMF of this value will correspond to this temperature difference. That is, delta T from your graph. That is, the temperature difference. Let us say this temperature is T1 inside the furnace and the room temperature is T2. So from the graph, T1 minus T2. That is, from the graph because you know the EMF. And since you know T2, that is room temperature or whatever reference temperature, you know the temperature inside the furnace. So this is how you find out the temperature and they are very, very accurate. They are very, very accurate. And when extreme conditions are there, that is very low temperatures and very high temperatures where you cannot use thermometers, you can safely use a thermocouple where the calibration graph has to be plotted beforehand. Because it is from the calibration graph that you can find out the temperature of the furnace, or let's say in a lab, in cryogenics lab, people use liquid nitrogen, and you know that the temperature of liquid nitrogen is well below 0 degrees Celsius. It is some minus 40, minus 50 degrees Celsius. So you just cannot poke in a thermometer and find out the temperature. It will freeze. So instead of using a thermometer, you can safely use a thermocouple, and it's very, very accurate. The temperature difference will be known from the calibration graph. Since you know the voltage, you can measure it using a voltmeter, and then from the calibration graph, you can find out the temperature of the hot junction or the cold junction, whatever it is. So this is the basic industrial applications of. So basically, a thermocouple is used as a temperature sensor. It senses the temperature. This is the graph that I was talking about. You can see the thermo EMF, and this is the thermo EMF versus the temperature difference graph. This is the x-axis, and this is the thermo EMF. So we will be in this experiment. We will be interested in a small region where it is. You can see it is parabolic in nature, but in this small region, you can see it is more or less behaving as a straight line. So the EMF produced can be safely written as it is proportional to the temperature difference. So it is linear. So it is linear in nature in this region. We can approximate it with a straight line. So this is the kind of equation that I was telling you. Now the apparatus used. Now you see that this is what we have. This is the thermocouple. You can see the copper constant in wire. You can see this is the junction. This is kept at, let's say, a beaker where the water is boiling or the water is hot. So this junction is the hot junction and this junction is the cold junction. Fine. So this is the constant on wire and you can see that again we have connected copper to this so that we can measure the voltage difference. So I want the EMF developed across this end and this end. I want the EMF developed across this end and this end. What I want is I wanted to connect it to a voltmeter. So you can see this circuit where there is a battery, a resistance. This is called a potentiometer wire. This is called a potentiometer that you have. All this, a galvanometer is there. Why all the fuss? You could ask, sir, why cannot we use a simple voltmeter and connect it across to find out the voltage or the EMF developed? That is what we require. See, the idea of the experiment is to find out the EMF developed across the thermocouple. So I could have simply connected a voltmeter across this thermocouple and easily measured the voltage difference or the EMF. But instead of doing this, I have used a very complicated circuit where we have a potentiometer, we have a battery, we have resistances, we have galvanometers and all. I'll explain why we are using this. The voltages or the EMFs developed are of the order of millivolt. The EMFs developed are of the order of millivolt across the thermocouple. See, we could have easily used a voltmeter of millivolt range. We could have found out, or a multimeter, which can measure millivolt voltages. So we could have used a multimeter or a voltmeter, but instead of using a voltmeter, a simple voltmeter, we are using this circuit. So let us understand why we are using this circuit. What is a potentiometer circuit? In your class 12 high school physics, you have studied what is a potentiometer and why is a potentiometer preferred over a voltmeter. It's always desirable where in situations where we can use a potentiometer, we should always use a potentiometer instead of a voltmeter. Where we cannot use a potentiometer, then there is no other choice. We have to use a voltmeter. But here we have a choice. So let us use a potentiometer and see why a potentiometer is better than a voltmeter. How does a voltmeter measure? Let us say I have a circuit, I have a resistance. Let us say I want the potential drop across A, B. I want this. Let us say the resistance is I. The current flowing through the circuit is I. Let us see. So what is the potential drop across AB? The potential drop across AB is IR. That is the exact potential difference. I want to measure the potential difference. What will I do? I'll connect a voltmeter in parallel to this. Voltmeter in parallel to this. You know that when a voltmeter is connected in parallel and a voltmeter has a very high resistance, even if it has a very high resistance, it will draw a small amount of current towards its own circuit. And since it is drawing a current, the voltmeter itself is drawing a current, the current flowing through the resistance decreases. So now it becomes I dash because a small current from I, this is the current I that was flowing in. Now the current is divided. A small amount of current is going through the voltmeter. Since the voltmeter has a high resistance, a small amount of current will flow and the rest current will flow through the resistance. So now the current flowing through the resistance is not I, but I dash, which is less than I. So what is the potential difference now across the resistance? It is I dash R and not IR. So there is an error involved. Always. Though the error is very small, because the current that the voltmeter draws is very small. So I is not much smaller than I dash is not much smaller than I, but still it is smaller. when we need high precision values, we just cannot use voltmeter, because voltmeter itself is drawing a current, and the current that was initially flowing through the resistance, due to which there was a potential drop, the current flowing through the resistance decreases because voltmeter is connected in parallel. So the current flowing through the resistance decreases. In other words, the voltage also decreases. So the measured voltage is less than the actual voltage by a small amount, but that is an error. So what to do? In that case, we will connect a potentiometer. So this session is going to end. So you will join using the same link, and I'll show you why a potentiometer is preferred, and there will be no error involved when a potentiometer finds out a potential difference. So I'm ending the session now. Instead of using a voltmeter, why are we using a potentiometer? So we discussed the drawbacks of a voltmeter. The voltmeter itself draws a bit of current, and that's why the true voltage drop across the circuit decreases, which we want to measure. So instead, since it is C, why is it giving an error? Because the voltmeter itself draws a current. The voltmeter itself draws a current, and that is why there is an error. And that is why there is an error. Now, let us see what is a potentiometer. So I'll be doing it on a page where I have space. So this is a potentiometer. It is basically a wire, a big wire in loops. Let us see. This is what we have. Simple diagram. This is a wire. This is a wire. Let us say a copper wire. This is one end of the wire, and this is the other end of the wire. And the total resistance of the potentiometer wire, is Rp. That is known. You know the total resistance. This wire, this is and the total length. So this is one length. Again, this is the other. This is the other. So the total length is L. Let us say of the potentiometer wire. That is the total length, starting from this point and going around like a snake pattern, ending at this point. So this is the total length of the potentiometer wire. So what we do is, let us say we connect a battery to this potentiometer wire. A battery is connected, and that is, let us say it has EMF E. Let us say, and with this battery, we connect a series resistance, let us say R1. This is, again. So we connect one end of the battery to the potentiometer wire, and the negative end to a series resistance R1 and to this end of the potentiometer wire. So if I make an equivalent circuit, then I have two resistances. One is the resistance of the potentiometer wire. This will be Rp, and the other is the resistance that is connected in series, that is R1, and this is connected to a battery. Let us say this is connected to a battery. They are in series. You can see they are in series. So this is the potentiometer wire whose resistance is Rp, we know, and a series resistance R1, again we know, that is connected. And the EMF of the battery is E. So what is the current flowing through the circuit? So what is the current flowing through the circuit? I through the circuit is, the current flowing through the circuit is E by R1 plus Rp. That is the current flowing through the circuit, because the total resistance is R1 plus Rp. So that is the current flowing through the circuit. So what is the potential drop across the potentiometer? This potential drop. I am making the nodes. So this potential drop, that is Vp. The potential drop across the potentiometer. That is, if I take this point as A and this point as B. What is the potential drop across these 2 points? So look at the equivalent circuit. What is the potential drop across these 2 points? It is I into RP. I is the current flowing, I into RP, and that is E by R1 plus RP into RP. So this is the net potential drop across the potentiometer wire. So if the potentiometer's total length is L, what is the potential drop per unit length? That is across each centimeter, let us say, of the potentiometer wire. What is the potential drop per unit length? That is denoted by, let us say, rho. This is nothing but the net potential drop is Vp divided by the total length of the potentiometer wire is L. So that is nothing but, so rho is nothing but E into Rp by R1 plus Rp into 1 by L. Volt per centimeter. This is volt per centimeter. Is it okay? So this is the potential drop per unit length. That is what it means, that this is the amount. See, everything is known to you. The voltage of the battery is known, the potentiometer resistance is known, the series resistance is known, and the length of the wire is known, the total length. So you know what is the potential drop per unit length of the potentiometer wire. Now this formula is okay. Now what I want is, I want to measure EMF across this. So I'll first of all, I'll rub this so that I have space. So that I have space, let me rub this off. I no longer require it. So let us say, let us say I want the potential difference across these two ends, that is C, D. I want to measure the potential difference across CD. The usual method, as I told you, is to connect a voltmeter, but the voltmeter would give erroneous results. So what I want is, I want to measure the potential difference. I will use this potentiometer circuit. So I'll connect C to A. I'll connect C to A. So what is the potential of C and A? C and A. A is the start of the potentiometer wire. C and A will be at the same potential. Am I right? And with D, let me write this. With D, I connect a galvanometer. A galvanometer is a device which measures the current as well as the direction. I connect a galvanometer and there is a jockey which can slide over the potentiometer wire. So now let us say I put my jockey at this point of the potentiometer wire. And so this point of the potentiometer wire and the point D, now they are at the same potential. If they are at the same potential, then there will be no current flowing through the galvanometer because D and this point on the potentiometer wire are connected. So D point, A and C are always at the same potential because they are connected. And D is, again, a connection is made using a galvanometer and a jockey is used that can slide over the potentiometer wire. Now let us say a situation arrives where this jockey is touching the potentiometer wire. This potential at the potentiometer wire and this potential of the point D, they are same. Then there will be no current flowing through this circuit because they are at the same potential. So what is the potential difference between C and D that I was trying to measure? it is the same potential difference that is between A point and this point on the potentiometer wire. They are same. So the potential difference across CD that I'm trying to measure is the same potential difference across A and the point where the jockey is touching the potentiometer wire. Because only then the galvanometer will show no deflection. These two potential differences would be same. And please check, in this case, no current is flowing. So this is drawing no current from this circuit, CD circuit. Remember, a voltmeter was drawing a current from the CD circuit, and that is why the voltage was less than the true voltage. But this galvanometer, this is the balanced condition. This galvanometer is drawing no current. So the potential drop across the potentiometer wire is same as the potential drop across the CD point, which I want to measure. In case of CD, here we will have a thermocouple whose potential difference we need to measure. So we'll connect one end of the thermocouple to point A and the other end through a galvanometer to a jockey, and that jockey will slide. The point where we will have no deflection means that the potential difference across the thermocouple is same as the potential difference across the potentiometer wire up to the point where the jockey is touching. And what is the potential difference? That potential difference, or EMF, is nothing but the potential per unit length. This is the potential drop per unit length across the potentiometer wire into that length, which is at which the jockey is touching. So let us say the jockey is touching at this point. This is the length that I'm talking about. So what is the potential drop across this length? What is the potential drop across this length? It is potential drop per unit length of the potentiometer wire into this length. So that is the EMF, and we know that this potential drop is equal to the potential drop across C and D, or the potential drop across the thermocouple that we are trying to measure. So here there is no error involved because it is drawing no current from the thermocouple. If you had connected a voltmeter across a thermocouple, it would have drawn current from the thermocouple, and the true voltage across the thermocouple would have dropped. And this is drawing no current through the thermocouple since it is balanced. So that's why you are getting exact value. And here you will be seeing now, we will be showing you how to perform the experiment. You will be seeing a ballastic galvanometer, and we will explain why. Let us see the experiment first, and we will explain why a ballastic galvanometer is used.
Okay, so this is your experimental arrangement. This is the whole setup. Now we'll first try to understand each portion individually. So first part, the thermocouple itself. Now you observe these are the two wires. These are the two wires, and this is one junction. And this junction is placed at room temperature. That means it is placed within water, and the water is kept at room temperature. So this junction is actually at room temperature. So this is the room temperature. This is the room temperature, and the junction is only kept at room temperature. And this junction will act as the cold junction for this particular experiment. And a thermometer is attached to it to measure the temperature of this junction. Let us observe it. These are thermometer, and you observe the temperature is 22.2 degrees centigrade. Let me check again. 22.4 degrees centigrade. So this is the temperature of the cold junction. And to have the hot junction, we have placed the other junction inside a beaker containing water, and that whole beaker is placed inside the heating vessel, so that when it is switched on, then we can supply the required heat so that the temperature of this water can be increased. Like here now, we are giving externally heat to we are supplying external heat to this water so that the temperature of this hot junction can be increased, and that can be measured with this thermometer. You can observe the temperature by this thermometer. Let us focus it. This is the thermometer, and you observe the temperature is increasing because we are continuously supplying heat to it. So the point is, one junction is kept at constant temperature, other junction is heated so that the temperature difference between the two junctions will be changed. And what we'll do, we'll measure the thermo EMF at 5 or 6 different temperature differences. And how we are changing the temperature differences? We are actually keeping one junction temperature fixed, this junction temperature will be fixed, and we are heating the other junction so that the temperature difference would be changed. What we'll do actually, we have increased the temperature to say 100 degrees centigrade, the boiling temperature of the water, and then we'll switch off the heating vessel. Then temperature will automatically be reduced. So we'll measure the hot junction temperature at certain intervals, and at those temperatures we'll measure the thermometer. For example, suppose when the hot junction temperature is at 95 degrees centigrade, then we'll measure the thermo EMF. Then when the hot junction temperature is at 90 degrees centigrade, we'll again measure the thermo EMF and the process will continue. Next thing, this is our potentiometer. Observe the potentiometer. So this is the potentiometer, and if you look at it carefully, there are 10 wires attached to it. So in meter reach, we have used a single wire having a length of 1 meter, that is 100 centimeter. Instead, we are using 10 wires. So the total length will be 1000 centimeter. Okay, so that we can utilize this potentiometer to measure the EMF more accurately. Now, there is a resistance box. This is the resistance box R1 as we are explaining in theory. And a particular amount of resistance is already plugged here. So the resistance box has resistance of 20,000 ohm here. And this is connected with your potentiometer. So, and there is a battery. This is our battery whose EMF is say E. So this battery is also connected. So we have a battery, we have a constant resistance box, we have a potentiometer, and we have connected the potentiometer with a galvanometer. So this is the galvanometer we have. This is the galvanometer we have. This is called the ballistic galvanometer. Now, the purpose of the ballistic galvanometer is to observe the presence of current in the circuit. So, if there is a current in the circuit, then we can understand from this galvanometer and what is the direction of that current. That can also be detected with the help of this galvanometer. Now, in this galvanometer, actually, there is a thin wire suspended between two coils, and the whole thing is placed inside the pole pieces of a magnet. That is, between north and south pole, this thin phosphor bronze wire is placed. It is suspended between this. And a mirror, you observe there is a circular mirror. That circular mirror, the small one, through this glass window, you can observe there is a small circular mirror, and that circular mirror is attached to that thin wire. Now, whenever Okay, before that, and we have also a lamp and scale arrangement for this setup. This is our lamp and scale. This is a scale, and there is a lamp attached to it. What is actually happening here when the circuit is open? So this is our jockey. This is our jockey. The jockey we are discussing in the theory. So when this jockey is connected with any part of this potentiometer, then only the circuit is completed. So when the circuit is not completed, the circuit is open. Under that condition, what we are doing with this help of this lamp, light is directly incident on the mirror of the galvanometer. And you observe that light from the mirror is now reflected back, and we have placed the scale in such a way that the reflected light from the mirror of the galvanometer is now placed on the scale, and we have adjusted the scale in such a way that right side of that reflected image is now aligned with the 0. The right side is the right side of the reflected image is now placed at the 0 point of the scale. Okay. Now what will happen if there is a current in the circuit? If there is a current in the circuit, then that current passes through the whole circuit, and it will pass through the galvanometer. It will pass through the Foster-Brunsch wire, and whenever it passes through the wire, which is placed in between a magnetic field, then the wire will rotate. Even if the amount of current is very small, then also the coil, that wire, will rotate under the influence of the magnetic field. So even if the very small amount of current is present, the wire will rotate, and as a result, the mirror will also rotate. And if the mirror is rotated, the reflected light will also be rotated. And whenever the reflected light will be rotated, then surely this image will not be placed at 0. It will be shifted either on left side or on right side. We'll observe it. So let's check. So this is the jockey, and as we know that this end, that is where the potentiometer starts. This is the starting point of the potentiometer. It is connected with the thermocouple. Therefore, at this point, there is no potential drop. There is no potential drop of the potentiometer at this point. This is the starting point. So as the length of the wire will increase, potential drop also will increase. That means if I touch the jockey at this point, then only up to this length will be considered. And the potential drop will be rho into this length. Rho, we have just discussed what is rho. Rho is the potential drop per unit length. So what length we are now considering? If the jockey is touching here, then this length will be considered. Then this will be the potential drop on that potentiometer. If this potential drop is same as the potential drop given by the thermocouple, that is thermal EMF, then there shouldn't be any current in the circuit. That means the galvanometer will not show any current. Instead, if this potential drop is not same as the thermal EMF developed at this particular temperature difference, then surely there will be some current present in the circuit, which will be detected by the galvanometer. That means we do not observe that 0 point. That means we will not observe that this image to be at the 0 point. Let's observe. So first, what we'll do, I'll touch the one end of the potentiometer. That is, this is the start. Oh, before that, I want another thing. You observe, this is the potentiometer starts from this end. So if I increase the length, that is the first wire, so length will be increased. That means potential drop should also be increased. Now this is the end of the first wire. This is the end of the first wire. You observe, this is the end of the first wire, and then second wire is connected from this end. So what is the end of first wire? That is the starting point of the second wire. So second wire starts from this point. That means if I connect my jockey here, if I connect my jockey at this point, say, then what will be the total length of the potentiometer? Well, then 100 centimeter, because the whole first wire is covered. The whole first wire is covered. That is 100 centimeter is covered, plus only this length of the second wire. Because second wire starts from the right side. Second wire starts from the right side, and that can be measured by these two scales. You observe there are two different scales. You observe when we go to the left end, then this is the lower end, lower scale that should be used because it starts from 0. That means if this is my point, if this is my point, then what is the length? Length is 5 centimeter. Length is 5 centimeter. Here, this is the length. Length is 5 centimeter. On the and you observe the upper one. Here it is 100. That means this will be used for the second wire or any even wire, because even wires like this second wire is starting from the right side. That means this is the 0 point. This is 0 point for the second wire. That means if I connect the jockey here, that means if I connect the jockey here, then means only this length is covered. That means what is this length? This length is 4 centimeter. So what will be the total length? Total length is 100 for the first wire and 4 centimeter for the second wire. So total 104 centimeter. So the point is, whenever we are touching the odd wires, then measurement should be from the left side. Whereas when you are touching the even wires, then measurement should be from the right side. That should be maintained, because how it is connected, that is how these wires are connected. Okay, now let's see how the image of that reflected light behaves when you touch it. So again, observe that image is at 0. Image is at 0. Now if I touch the jockey near the starting point of the potentiometer wires, so this is I am touching. Now you observe it is going on left side. It is going on the left side. Again I am touching. You observe it is going on the left side. It is going on the left side. Okay. On the other hand, if we touch the 10th wire, extreme left of the 10th wire, that means remember it was starting from this end, so this is how it is connected. So last wire is starting from the right side, so it ends at the left side. So if I connect it near the end of this, you observe now it is going on the right side. Again, observe it is going on the right side. So near the starting of the potentiometer wire, deflection is left, whereas at the end it is on right side. That means the null point, that is why there will not be any deflection in the galvanometer. Deflection in the galvanometer means when there is no current in the circuit, that must be within this 10 watts. Let's see how we can find out. So for that, again we will observe the position of the 0 initially, that is when circuit is open. Then when we will just connect different wires. So if I connect say near the mid of the first wire, we observe that deflection on left. Okay. For the second wire, deflection left. Third wire, deflection depth. So you will just continue it, and you will observe. Now I am checking for fifth wire. Fifth wire is also on left. Now sixth wire. Let it come to the 0 again. Then we will check. Now I am doing the sixth wire. You observe deflection is very small. That means the null point must be near about this region. So now I am moving still slight left. Now you observe almost nil. Now I am touching it, still there is no change. So this is the position. This is the position. So of the this is the null point position. That means if I connect the jockey at this particular point of this wire, then there is no deflection. That means there is no current in the circuit. That means the potential drop of the given by this potentiometer is same as the potential drop by the thermocouple. So that is the thermo EMF at this temperature difference. Now, how will we measure it? First thing, you will observe that this is for the sixth wire. You observe the wire number is 6. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the sixth wire. So this is the sixth wire. So 500 plus. This is the even wire. That means we will start from the right side measurement. So how will you do that? We place a scale here. We will place a scale here. So this is 65.6. 65.6 centimeter. We are using the upper one because it has the wire has started from right side. So what will be the total length? Total length 500 because there are 5 wires which are completely covered. So 500 plus this length of the sixth wire up to this particular length of the sixth wire, which is 65.6 centimeters. So total 565.6 centimeter will be the length of the potentiometer wire. That means what will be the potential drop? Rho into this length. So rho into 565.6 centimeter 6 will be the total potential drop, and that will be the thermo EMF of this thermocouple at that particular temperature. Now, hopefully you understand, as the temperature changes, the potential drop will also be changed, and you need to measure it at different temperature difference. So, what is the reading of the thermometer of the hot junction now? Let's observe. Can you zoom it a little bit? Hundred 1.8. Just a second. Let us focus it. Okay, this is very difficult for you to observe the reading because of the problem in focusing. But I am telling you, it is now the temperature of the hot junction is 101.4 degrees centigrade. So at that particular temperature, the thermo EMF is this. Now, what we will do? We will decrease the temperature. That means the actually heating meter is switched off, and the temperature will automatically be reduced. And at certain intervals, say 4 to 5 degrees, will try to measure the position of null point. So for 5 or 6 different temperatures of the hot junction, that means 5 or 6 different temperature differences, where we will measure the position of the null point. And it is observed that as the temperature difference is reduced, that is, as the hot junction temperature is reduced, the length for the null point, that is length when there is no current in the circuit, then that length will be decreased. That means if in the previous case we have observed that length was 560 for 5 point something. Now if the temperature is reduced to say 95 degrees centigrade, then instead of 612 we may get the reading at 512 and say the length is say 90 centimeter. That means 400 plus 90 centimeter will be the length. So potential drop rho into 490. That will be the total potential drop for this thermometer, which is same as the potential drop or thermo EMF of that thermocouple. Okay, now we will come back to our presentation.
So you saw how to perform the experiment. So these were the apparatus that you saw. This is the thermocouple, one into the hot junction. It is boiling water. So this is the hot junction. These are the thermometers that we use to measure the temperature difference. This is the potentiometer that you saw, 10 wires. This is the ballistic galvanometer. This is the mirror on which light falls, and when current flows through this, it rotates, and since light is getting reflected from this mirror, the light also has a translational motion. So this is the lamp and scale arrangement. So this is what you have basically. So you have the scale and you have the mirror over here. So light directly falls on the mirror and comes back. That is the reflected light, and falls, let's say, over here. So if the mirror rotates, let's say to this side, then light falls, comes over here, and light gets reflected to this point. So if it rotates to this side, the light gets reflected to this point, and if the mirror rotates to this side, then light goes to the mirror and gets reflected to the right. So, and the mirror rotates only when there is current flowing through the mirror. So this is the battery that we were using. The EMF was 2. This was the resistance box. 20,000 ohm was taken out. That is the R1 resistance that I was talking about. The series resistance R1. We know it is 20,000 ohm. I've already mentioned the theory. The EMF is resistance per unit length into the length at which you find the null point. This is all you know. This was, I already told you this. This is the resistance per unit length in volt per meter, volt per centimeter. And so the thermo EMF is this rho into small l. So this is small l at which you find the null point, the zero deflection of the galvanometer. That's it. That is the EMF developed across the thermocouple. So this is the calibration graph that I was talking about. The experimental procedure has already been done, already been told to you. This is the table that will be supplied to you. The cold junction temperature is, let us say, that will be supplied. That is already given to you. That has been made. So this is the table. This is the kind of the graph that you would expect. I told you for low temperatures it would be a straight line. Okay, so this is the kind of table that you would have. The total length of the potentiometer wire is 1000. The EMF is 2. R is basically, this is RP, the resistance of the potentiometer wire, the total potentiometer wire, that is 50 ohm. The series resistance is 20,000 ohm. T1, we have taken it as 27, but whatever the room temperature is or the cold junction temperature is will be supplied to you. That might be different. In this case, we saw it was 22.4 around. So this is, we know T1. So we know the cold junction temperature. So the hot junction temperature is to be varied, as sir was telling you, that you would be starting from around 100 and then you'll allow it to cool. So the hot junction temperature would change. And if the hot junction temperature changes, delta T, this is delta T, that the temperature difference that I was talking about, which creates the EMF, also changes. So whenever the temperature difference reduces, it is reducing in this case, since the hot junction temperature is decreasing, the EMF would also decrease. So this is for the measurement of EMF. You have the wire number. So for 100 degree, the wire number is 6. The scale reading is this. So you know that if the wire number is 6, there are 5 wires before it, each having a length of 100 centimeter. So the total length would be 500 plus 87.4. So this will be somewhere 587.4 centimeter. Similarly for this one, 552.3. So you can find the thermo EMF. Thermo EMF is basically, we have calculated for the first two values. Rho we know. This is a constant that we know. This is a constant that we know. It is ER. R is basically RP, the potentiometer resistance, RP, ERP, RP plus RI, R1 into 1 by L. So it is 2. E2 is the EMF of the battery. RP, that is the resistance of the potentiometer wire, is 50. 50 plus the series resistance is 20,000 into 1 by total length is 1000. So this is the value that you get, 4.98753 10 to the power minus 6 volt per centimeter. This is the potential drop per unit length of the potentiometer wire. So keep these digits, keep the digits up to 5 or keep 5 digits after the decimal place, so that the EMF value that you calculate can be very accurate. So for the EMF calculation, this is, let's say, E1, and that is rho. Rho is fixed. This is the potential drop per unit length that is fixed into the first reading, that is L1. This was, remember, for 100 degrees Celsius of hot junction. In our case that we saw, that we showed here. For 100 degrees Celsius, L1 was, or L, this is the length at which you got null point is 587.4. So this is what we have done. So rho multiplied by L. This is the EMF that is produced across the thermocouple, and that is balanced by the potential drop across the potentiometer wire. This is in volts. If you convert it into millivolt, you have 2.930 millivolt. Similarly, we have done it for the second reading. This is what you have to do for all the readings. So L2 is the second reading. It is 552.3. You can see the table. This is the table. This sixth wire means there are 5 wires previous to it. So it is 500 plus 52.3. So this gives 552.3. So this gives 552.3. So this is what is multiplied with rho. This is what is multiplied with rho, and you get this one. And this is for 95 degrees Celsius. So you see the temperature difference has reduced. Your initial or your cold junction temperature was 27. So delta T has reduced, and you can see the voltage, the EMF developed is also reduced. So you can see there is a direct relationship. These are the readings for all the temperatures. You can see the temperature is this of the hot junction. So this is the temperature difference, delta T. You see the delta T is getting reduced, and you can see the wire number is also shifting to a lower value, which means that the potential or the EMF developed is also reducing. And finally, you can see when there is no temperature difference, the EMF induced is also 0. You know that without a temperature difference, no EMF can be induced. That was the primary condition for inducing EMF. So if you plot, what we want is, we want to plot the experimental data. So that this is the thermo EMF, that is E along the y-axis. This is E value, thermo EMF along y-axis, and this is the temperature difference, that is delta T. So let me show you the table again. This is what we are plotting. We will be plotting T2 minus T1, the temperature difference. This is the x-axis, and thermo EMF, this one is your y-axis. So that would be a straight line, as you can see. So if you fit these points and pass a graph, so that the graph must pass through origin, because you know that was 0 temperature difference, the EMF must also be 0. So if you draw a graph so that equal number of points lie on either side of the line, this is the kind of graph that you would see. See, the graph is passing through origin. This is what you have. Now, in order to find the thermoelectric power, that is the final aim of your experiment, you have to find the thermoelectric power P. The thermoelectric power P at a given temperature. Now, remember, that's an important point. Remember, I told you that the graph is more or less like a parabola. This is what you have. The power is defined as, the thermoelectric power is defined as del E del T. That is the slope. And if it is a curve, then every point on the curve, the tangent changes. That is the slope changes. That is the slope changes. So you need to define at which point you need to find out the power. Since the slope changes, that is del E by del T is nothing but the slope of this graph. It is the slope of this graph. And if it is a curve, then the slope changes at every point. So you need to specify at which point you want to find the slope. So that is why it is mentioned at which point or at which temperature you need to find out the power. But since this is a straight line, you need not bother about that because the slope at every point of a straight line is same. So any point you take the slope, you can take the slope at any point, the slope would be same for a straight line. And you can find out the slope by two methods. One is choose a point, choose any arbitrary point and find out this value. This is the temperature difference 40 and this is your EMF value. Let us say this is your EMF value. So basically it is this EMF value, this EMF value, this, it is this, the slope is this divided by this. That is power is, you know, it is del E del T. So you can find the slope. So straight away, this is the triangle. That is one point is at the origin, and the other point is you have chosen an arbitrary point. Draw a triangle and find out the slope. Or what you can do is you can choose two different points other than origin, and then draw a triangle. So you choose one non-experimental point like here, and the other non-experimental point like here, and draw a triangle. And again, find this value and find this value. Divide the two, you will have the slope. And since it is a straight line, it does not depend on the choice of your point. So this is the power. So let us say this length is, or this much amount of EMF is 1.615 millivolt, and this difference of temperature is 40 degrees Celsius. So the power would be, so the power is del E by del T from the graph, and it is 1.615 divided by 40 millivolt per degree Celsius. And if you convert it, you will get 40.38 microvolt. This is microvolt, because if you keep it in millivolt, you would get 0.04038201. This is you will get. This is what you will get in millivolt if you keep. If you divide this by this, and if you want to convert it to microvolt, this is microvolt. You want to convert it, shift 3 points to the right, and you would get 40.38201. So that is in microvolt. So we prefer to write in microvolt per degree Celsius. So that is your, in our case, this is our thermoelectric power. So basically, what is thermoelectric power? Thermoelectric power, the physics of it is what is the amount of EMF generated per unit change in temperature or difference in temperature between the junctions. So let us say 1 degree difference of temperature between the junctions create this much amount of EMF. So that is the power. So for a different thermocouple, if for 1 degree difference of temperature, the EMF generated is more, that is for the same temperature difference, that is for the same temperature difference between the junctions, the EMF generated is more, which implies the power is also more. So the thermocouple is generating more EMF for the same amount of temperature difference. So that is thermoelectric power, and that is what we want to find out. So again, we see that the thermoelectric power, we are writing it up to 5 decimal digits, but we need to truncate it according to the error calculation. So let us see the proportional error calculation. Delta P by P is delta of delta E by delta E, delta of delta T by delta T. What is delta E delta T? This delta E and delta T, this is basically from the slope. Remember, this was E, this was delta T, and this was your straight line. And if you remember, you had drawn a triangle to find out the slope. This was your delta E from your triangle, and this was your delta T, which you used to calculate the slope. So this is basically this delta E. Delta E is this, and delta T is this. And delta of delta E is nothing but the smallest division along y-axis. It is the smallest division along y-axis, and it depends on how you scale your graph. This will depend on how you scale your graph, because it is the smallest division along y-axis. And what is this then? This is the smallest division along x-axis. So these two depend on how you scale your graph. And these two depend, the denominators depend, how big the triangle you take. How big the triangle that you take. So it is preferable that you take a bigger triangle. So if we put the values, this is for our plot, the smallest division along y-axis is this, and this was, remember, our delta E, 1.615 millivolt. This is the smallest division along x-axis for our plot, and 40, remember, was delta T, this distance. So if we put these values, we get delta P by P, that is the proportional error of the power as this. So I want the absolute error. So the absolute error is this into P. And what is P? You remember P was 40.38201. This is P into this delta P by P is this. Delta P by P is this. So you have this, these two multiplied. So these two multiplied. So that is 0.716 microvolt per degree Celsius. So I want to add and subtract, add or subtract P and delta P. So if I add and subtract this value and this value, this is delta P and this is P, which is the first digit that is getting affected? It is 3 that is getting affected, because here there is 7. So if you add 7 to 3, it will change, or if you subtract 7 from 3, again it will change. So we are not sure about 3. So we cannot write after 3, and we will round it off. So it is 40.38 has been rounded up to 4. We are not sure about this. So we have truncated it, plus minus. Again, we are not writing 16.7 microvolt per degree Celsius. So that is the thermoelectric power of a given thermocouple. So